I believe that guidance is everywhere, and it's really about how we open up to it. It's in a book, it's in a conversation you overhear. I believe that the universe is literally orchestrating on our behalf. So maybe it's tea leaves for you, maybe it's an oracle deck, maybe it's Reverend Michael Beckwith's talk. But I know that I'm receiving messages from everything and everywhere. I believe that there's this field of consciousness, that it's alive. Um, and it's funny. It can be really
Very
funny. And,
funny.
wink,
Yes.
wink. So I feel like there's nothing too big or too small that this energy um, cannot support, cannot answer. There's no question too big. So I receive information from everything and everywhere. License plates. I see, my mother's birthday everywhere. That's my number. So I believe that once you step into this and are open to it, you can't help but see it everywhere. Everything is resonant.
Karen Brailsford, welcome to Fear Unzipped. Oh, what a delight. Again, I'm going to say thank you, Beth Grossman, for introducing us. It's like a constant, it just should be supered on the screen because she knows such beautiful people, and I thank her. I thank her deeply. Before I introduce you, Karen, this came in this morning, and I feel like I need to read it. And this is very unusual for me to do. I've never done it before, but this message came into me that I'm supposed to share. And it is, I open this space as a resonance bubble. Fear is not resisted, it is unzipped. Through breath, tone, and presence, we remember coherence. Let this conversation be a spiral of healing for me, for you, and for all who listen. I almost
Beautiful.
want to say amen.
That's funny because this morning I was thinking, I guess I was having this vision of me speaking somewhere, and I heard myself say, let the audience say amen, amen, amen. And then I went on to say, I like to begin with the amen because that means it's already done, it's already complete. Don't know where that came from. So obviously we're vibing.
We're vibing, and that's where the strings all connect, that quantum physics thing.
Yeah, yep.
Karen, I want to let the listeners and viewers know a bit about you. Fascinating background. You're the author of The Sacred Landscape of the Soul, which is this book right here, which I highly recommend, highly recommend. And we'll talk about that. And I'll tell you my experience with it. Which is the winner of the Gold Nautilus Book Award. Congratulations. You talk about the inner landscape, and I love that. You talk about our inner landscape in terms of plateaus and tundras and mountains, and it's so beautiful and something I can relate to. You talk about belonging, but more existential belonging, and that we all need that. We're all craving that because we're not quite comfortable in our lives, many of us. You're a licensed spiritual practitioner with the Agape International Spiritual Center. You presented a talk and guided meditation for the Dalai Lama's Global Vision Summit. Beautiful. This is so interesting. You spent 2 decades covering arts and culture, Hollywood, fashion, beauty, and human interests as a staff writer and editor for Newsweek, Elle, People, E! Entertainment. So you know that full gambit. You're a literary agent as well. So I'm not really sure what you don't do, but I did want to say this one quote from you. You said, people suffer less from circumstances than from disconnection from inner guidance. Woo, like, whoa, right? So now, Karen, I'm gonna toss the baton and ask you to share with us your background. Before you were doing all these magical things, what was your life like? What was your childhood like? What got you to where you are today?
Oh, that's so fascinating. I didn't know we were going to go there. I love that. I love that. Um, so I grew up in the South Bronx. I grew up in the South Bronx, and I like to say that I always for a long time, I straddled two worlds because my life changed dramatically when I entered sixth grade. And I moved from the local public school to a private girls' school called Brearley. Brearley born and Brearley bred. And when we die, we're Brearley dead. So on the Upper East Side, it's right near Carl Schurz Park, where the Gracie Mansion is located. I know New Yorkers have a new mayor. Go Mondani. And so my world changed dramatically then because suddenly I entered this world of privilege. It was all girls. Um, and I am so grateful to Brearley for all that it gave me. I am friends still with the girls from there. I've become friends again with girls who grew up there with me, but we weren't friends then. So it's just been such a catalyst for me.
Mm.
Um, and I remember my mother who passed away some years ago, but I remember her saying to me once when I came home, "How is it that you're able to navigate this world? How is it, don't you feel funny or strange when they're talking about their country houses and their summers spent overseas?" And I actually felt comfortable there because of the particular girls I became really good friends with. So it was an opening for me. And also I had a very intuitive instinct about that school.
Mhm.
I had applied to a number of schools after my fifth grade teacher, Jonathan Kolb, I get to say his
Oh.
name, who tapped me on the shoulder once during a cafeteria in the local public school and said, PS 49, and said, "Would you ever think about going somewhere else?" And I'm like, I never thought of that. So put me on the trajectory to apply to these private schools. And I remember I never saw Brearley before I went there. I remember being with my mom and I'm asking her, "Well, tell me about Burley." She'd taken the tour and she said, "There's an elevator." And I knew then that's where I meant to go. So there was some sort of connection. And looking back, it was the best school of all the schools. And it was a great ushering in for me in terms of a theme, I suppose, that's been true for my life, in that I've always tried new vistas. I've always experienced different landscapes and made my home there wherever I was. I think because of my inner connection to spirit, to God, to the universe, to that inner guidance. I used to think that it was because of my mother. My mother was very rooted spiritually. She was a Baptist, went to a church. I write about it in the introduction, my Baptist church. And I used to think it's because of all of her prayers and all of the ancestors' prayers. I'm not discounting that now because I feel such support, palpable support from both of my parents and my
Mhm.
grandparents, and this lineage that I carry, that I am proud to carry, and the angels and the guides who pulled me out of all kinds of funny situations, which I've only just realized that's what it was. I mean, I've been stuck, my car would break down, and all of a sudden someone would appear. "Hey, can I help you?" And I've only recently realized just what that was, which is very interesting. So I kind of walk this life knowing that, oh my gosh, all things are possible. Oh my gosh, you know, born African American, United States, South Bronx, gets to go to Brearley, to Yale, and to kind of connect with all of these different celebrities and people, and birth one myself. My daughter's an actress. So it's been an interesting, crazy journey.
And that, Karen, it's incredible because as a young child, you seemed so grounded.
Mm,
I've never heard anybody that came into the world and felt they knew that they were taken care of. They knew there was guide. I mean, it was an unconscious thing, I'm sure, that you're guided and that you just had faith that things were just going to work out. And
I
especially a young
My
girl
mother.
going to a school in 6th grade, not knowing any of the kids. I mean, I would have been terrified. I can tell you that. So maybe you already talked about where that came from, but it's definitely what you talk about,
Mm.
that inner guidance. So let's just get into that juicy stuff right now.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I don't want to paint the picture that, oh, everything was hunky dory and then I
Mhm.
experienced loss or there were some huge losses and complications with my father and
Mm.
all of that. But when I think of Burley in that first day, I can see myself seated, and then all of these girls looking up, and these girls had come around to like welcome me, and to so there is polarity, certainly, but I honestly think, my mother was a person. I remember once I wasn't feeling well, or I just really didn't want to go to church. And she was like, "Well, if you go, you'll feel better." So I had to go. And I realized that was true. Now, my spiritual journey took me on a different path. I'm a new thought person. I ended
Mhm.
up, you know, going to Agape, and that was a magical thing in terms of how I got there. It was definitely divinely orchestrated how I got there and how I'm there after all these decades. So I'm not trying to discount the human, you know.
Mhm.
I didn't have money to go to the school dance, to the dance that happened, the gold and silver ball. I'm grateful to hear now that even if you're on scholarship, you get to go to those things now.
Mm.
And and it was frustrating sometimes, to see, all of these opportunities in this world, and then, not to know we could pay the rent. There was definitely that disparity, but I was also aware, it made me really aware that it doesn't really matter how much money you have, you know, it doesn't make you happy. I saw that firsthand. Um, I recently, I guess last summer, I met with, and I rarely do this, I'm very specific about whom I meet with because I think going to an intuitive is like opening your journal, your diary to someone. So so whenever that's happened to me over the years, it's not like I'm someone who sees someone regularly, but this person I saw, and she said something that I thought was interesting. She's like, You've not had very many lives here. You kind of like hovering in the
Um,
you're an old soul, and yet you like hovering, you're not you've decided to come into the body, but it's not exactly where you might feel most comfortable. And I thought that resonated with me. So
oh, that's amazing. I have that feeling. I'm
mhm,
so comfortable in the ethers.
mhm,
I'm so comfortable just kind of dissipating out there, and so I had to work at feeling comfortable here. I do love that as humans, we get to do this and we get to
mhm,
experience all those emotions. I also heard that you don't have to have a million lives or a bunch of lives, past lives, to be an old soul.
mhm, mhm.
And that's really interesting to know. And I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you.
So, what is the agape? Can you tell us a bit about what goes on there and
Yeah.
how you did get connected there? Because I am curious.
Yes, yes, yes. Agape International Spiritual Center is based in Los Angeles, operating out of the Saban Theater in LA, but we are an international organization in that we have individuals around the globe who are streaming our services, which we did before COVID. I like to say that we were ready for COVID. We know that we were ready for COVID because we did have this robust um, congregation and followers around the globe. And so I actually joined the staff um, right before COVID. That was divinely orchestrated. That January, which is so, after decades of attending, I was invited to join the staff. And I work with Reverend Coco Stewart, who's the pastoral care ministry, director of pastoral care. And so we oversee um, support for the congregants from the crisis support clinic, which launched March 30th. right after we shut down online, in which individuals
Wow.
get to meet with licensed spiritual counselors, complimentary in a breakout room, and actually have sessions with our I think there are 200 to 300 licensed spiritual counselors.
Wow.
So agape is a Greek word. By the way, I studied ancient Greek at Brearley to avoid science. I can actually read, read the Greek letters, but agape means love. And so you asked how I got there, and I got there because when I first got to LA in 94, maybe a year later, I ended up going to an acupuncturist because I wanted to shrink these fibroid tumors that I had
Mhm.
naturally. And Susan Arima, um, I remember being on the table and she put the needles in me, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I felt this wave.
Mhm.
And then the next thing I knew, I was speaking as I understood it then, um, because of having gone to a Baptist church, I was speaking in tongues because of the acupuncture needles. And I realized, oh, that's all the same. That's all part of something opened up within me. And at the time, I had also had a few car accidents. Believe it or not, I was a new driver. Talking about being intrepid. Talking about being intrepid, I moved to LA to take a job at People magazine as a reporter, not knowing how to drive. And so
Oh,
I
LA
got
is hard.
I got my license in LA. And I had a couple of car accidents. And I said to Susan, the acupuncturist, I said, do you work with spirit? And she explained to me that she does, but she doesn't usually tell people that
Mhm.
because that's what she's doing. And I said, because I feel as if the universe is literally tapping me on the shoulder because I had this one accident, but then I had this second accident. And it was so weird because people got out of their cars. They were like, that's strange. It looks as if that was meant to happen. And the man who hit me, he must have been like 85 or 90. And his last name was Good. So we thought, this must be meant to be, but gosh, that was weird. And so I said, I feel as if I need to go to a church. Like maybe I need to. And she's like, oh, I go to Agape. And that's how I ended up
Mhm.
going to Agape. And the very first Sunday I was there, I felt at home. It felt like Reverend Michael Beckwith, who founded Agape. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary in November of this year. He reminded me, he had the tone and intonation of like a fiery Baptist preacher in some ways, and that's the energy. And then it was new thought, God is within you, and we are here to be a mighty presence, and we are here, everything that is in God is in you, and we
Mhm.
are aspects, and there is no other, there is only the one, the one, the one. So I really resonated with that and found myself again feeling, slain in the spirit and thinking, this is weird because I don't think they do that at this church. So something opened up in me. And I remember kind of like standing up, even though I wanted to sit down. Spirit's like, stand up. And I kind of like, I don't know, you know, moving in this way that I'm feeling shy about doing, but I have no choice. And I kind of like I'm saying, I'm apologizing. I'm aware of what's happening and apologizing to this couple in front of me. And they're like, don't worry about it, baby. It's okay. So that was my experience at Agape. And I started attending regularly for a few years and taking the classes and being really enthralled by the practices. At the time, it was connected to the science of the mind churches. So that's where it grew out of, and then it became its own thing. But it's a very special place. It's a place where it's multiracial. So often, as you know, in this country, people
Mhm.
worship, with only their kind.
Mhm.
Well, we are so diverse. We embrace everyone, sex, creed, color. And
Mhm.
so it's a really, it's a representation of what this country, I think, was meant to be and was and at its heart, it's a place of love. And that's what it is.
Yeah,
And that's what
it's
agape is.
beautiful. Beautiful. We need that more than ever. Love is the answer for sure. I
It's
want to I want to get into your book a little bit. And this book was so interesting to me because the way that I read it was I just flipped it open
I love
and
yeah.
I thought, okay, what do I need today? And then it just, it's simple. It's simple. It doesn't require a lot of my thought, just, I just want something simple. I have too much going on. And the other thing that I realized about it is the words are like poetry
Mm.
and they have a frequency in them, like an energy in them that take on a life of their own. And that's what I felt. So when I was reading the words, but there was something else that was going on that was like an energetic bubble. And so the words didn't really matter. It was the energy that I was feeling from it. I seriously, I, I have never read a book that I felt exactly that way before.
Oh my goodness.
So it's it's something that people would put by the side of their bed, or they want to pick up, put in their car, and just stop and at some point they're in a parking lot and go, I think I need that. So can we talk about inner guidance? How do we get to inner guidance? So many of us are so unsure of ourselves, and the world, especially in this country, is out to make you feel unsure. It's supposed to keep you in fear and keep you, you can't be confident because then, others can lose control over you. So
Mhm.
how do we, and we're struggling. How do we find inner guidance and feel protected and really know that there are those around us that are helping us at all times?
Mm. Well, Sandy, first of all, thank you for your kind words about the book. And there's some people I know who read it and say, "Oh, I'm reading your book," and they read it, from cover to cover.
Mhm.
But the way that you are approaching it is the way I approach it every morning, actually. I
Mhm.
do flip it open and see what the message is for the day. Um, I believe that guidance is everywhere. And it's really about how we open up to it. It's in a book. It's in a conversation you overhear. I believe that the universe is literally orchestrating on our behalf. So maybe it's tea leaves for you. Maybe it's an oracle deck. Maybe it's Reverend Michael Beckwith's talk. But I know that I'm receiving messages from everything and everywhere. I believe that there's this field of consciousness, that it's alive. Um, and it's funny. It can be really
Very
funny. And,
funny.
wink,
Yes.
wink. I mean, just before I got on this call, I was listening to some music and thinking about trying not to think about fear. I'm like, oh, what's she going to ask me?
Yeah.
And then a few songs came to me to play, but I'd also been looking for my lipstick and I've been searching for it. And I'm thinking, goodness, where is this lipstick? And I couldn't find it. And then I was listening to George Michael's Faith. And I turned and right by the printer was the lipstick. And I'm like, thank you, God, for showing me the lipstick. So I feel like there's nothing too big or too small that
Mhm.
this energy um cannot support, cannot answer. There's no question too big. So I receive information from everything and everywhere. License plates. I see, my mother's birthday everywhere. That's my number. And so I see I see confirmation in my own journal because I do have an electronic journal. I write in the notes app on my iPhone
Mhm.
each so a different entry for a different date. And so I can search my journal and find it's this web of synchronicity that
Mhm.
is mind blowing. So I believe that once you step into this and are open to it, you can't help but see it everywhere. Everything is resonant.
My gosh, Karen, I'm so with you on this because I'm just so open to the signs, and I want to get into that on how for people that aren't used to that, how do you open up that channel? But I'm so open to it, and there have been so many signs just for the podcast that you can't. There's a point you cannot ignore them. I mean, you can't ignore them, but then you're missing such a great opportunity because I believe the guidance is coming in to get you in alignment with who you are and what your soul's purpose is. The signs are there. The guidance is not going to steer you off the wrong path. It's just not. It could be your interpretation, but so I'm such a believer in signs in the littlest, tiniest thing that I'll just start giggling because I'll go, you guys, you've got to be kidding. That's that's either the biggest coincidence in the world or you guys are totally with me. And I have such a confidence that I am so guided that whatever happens is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That I was guided here. I'm supposed to do this. Just even reading that this morning, let me just tell you, Karen, if I was told I was going to be doing this years ago, and I was going to read something that was channeled into me in the morning, I would say, there's no way I'm going to be that vulnerable. People are going to think it's silly, or I'm silly, or I have thrown that by the wayside. Because there are people that are going to find you that are going to resonate with you, and there are people that aren't, and that's fine. How do you share with people, and you can use examples from the book, but how do we open that channel and welcome it in and not scuff it off or think, oh, I'm making it up. That's silly. How do we trust it? Trust.
Mm-hmm. Trust is key, but I also think I wonder. It's kind of like, listening to changing channels on a radio dial. You're in your car, you might, and I just think I don't believe that one has to do anything. I think there's an invitation, um, and that people are on different ends of the spectrum. So I'm completely open to all of it. Although, well, that's not exactly true. There are some things I'm like, I feel a little, I'm not going to say what they are, but there's some things that you think like I'm a doubting Thomas as much as I believe. But on the other hand, I know there are people, I have a good friend and I share all my stories, like you won't believe what happened. I mean, every day it's like,
Yes.
what? And he believes them. And yet, um, he doesn't believe, but he believes. So, but I was so reassured because once he said to me, Karen, so, I know if I'm trying to think of a word or think of a person or think of a thing, I don't have to worry about it. It's just going to show up. It'll show up, I'm reading a newspaper or that someone will say the word. So he believes that. And to me, I'm like, well, that's the evidence. That's the evidence. So I think you're asking for like, how does one grow to trust? First of all, when I'm not in trust, I have these examples to fall back on, right? I remember Howard Thurman, the theologian and mystic, talks about walking in remembered radiance, which is when things are horrible or you're not feeling so great or you're not trusting, you remember those times. And I record those times. You mentioned the passage in the sacred landscape that you talked about how you channel. And that's a word I've shied away from, but now I try not to shy away from that word so much. So these pieces were written over a span of time for Agape's Intervisions magazine. And then with the help of my literary agent, I shaped it into the book. I imposed the structure of landscapes on it. And so many of the pieces, I remember where I was when I wrote them. I was ministering, spirit was ministering to me because of what was happening in my life at that time. So I think they are each, and there are 111 passages, um, 9 landscapes, 3 terrains that speak to where we might feel in any given moment, whether we feel stuck, trapped as we might in a forest, or whether we feel like, oh my gosh, look at this vista before me, the mountaintop consciousness. And so for me, it's about, and you have to understand that I do come from this foundational understanding, like there's something bigger than me, whether or not I chose to pursue it in a different way than I did when I was a child, growing up in the Baptist church and actually experiencing water immersion. Um, that was kind of my default position. I never not believed. And so, and I know that might be tricky for, at Agape, there are a number, as we say, recovering Catholics, and there are a number of individuals who come from different belief systems, or they're agnostic or atheists. I actually, to be honest, I don't think it really matters if you are atheist or agnostic or whatever you are. And as a matter of fact, as I write in my intro, it was Mrs. Frances Dunham, the mother of my good friend at Brearley, Kathy Dunham, who actually spearheaded my spiritual journey because they were atheist agnostics. Because I knew there was no way in heaven that this wonderful woman who had worked in the Peace Corps and did all these interesting, fascinating things and was so sweet, called me sweetie, called her daughter sweetie, that she was going to hell.
Yeah.
And so there was this, so I knew as a kid, 12, 13, oh, that made no sense. So that made me want to search. And I did search. And so you're asking how does one bolster that faith? How does one trust? And I think it's really about going within, being still, being quiet, being open, like really being open. I know it's, especially now when things are so polarizing, I think it's probably hard to be open if you turn on the news and you're watching what's happening.
So you don't turn on the news.
I actually do. I dip in. I do dip in. I read. I mean, I'm a journalist, so by training, so it's habitual for me to. I have to know what's going on, but I ebb and flow in terms of how much I let in. I don't let in too much. I might watch someone whom I trust, for a few minutes, and then I might move on because one of the exercises I did at Agape's training program to become a licensed spiritual counselor, in one class, we had to read the newspaper. The exercise was to read the newspaper and to see the truth behind the headlines. So to see the truth in the devastation, to see the truth. And the truth is that there is only one God, one presence, and it is everywhere presence. And love is, love is, love is. As I've been called to say and think recently, God is, God is, God is. And so I'm operating from that foundation. And so so we see the news as a call for prayer. So, that needs my attention. That situation there needs my attention. We don't believe in devils, and so the idea is like, oh, that person there, right where they are, God is. Even though they might seem to be politically opposed to where we are, we know God created that person as well. And so it's about coming to that truth, and also being aware of what triggers you. I'm not going to watch, there's certain videos I might not watch until I'm ready to take them in, and that I can be centered and know the truth. This is reminding me, I had this amazing experience that had never happened before. Last week, I was driving, and I've been on this really not making a move without spirit. I've had a number of things to do, and literally I'm guided. Go to this store, go here, buy this, get that. So it's just been amazing. And I knew I had another errand, so to speak. I get in the car, and then I see this van. I'm going to cry. It said organ transplant. And so the sirens were on. Have you ever seen this before? I've never seen this.
Never.
So I was just like, oh my God, someone is receiving an organ, whether it's a liver or a heart, and they were speeding ahead. I'm on the freeway and I can see the sirens and the lights. And I just went into prayer. I mean, whenever we're driving around, I was kind of schooled to do that. There's an ambulance here. So for some reason last week, a lot of that was happening. Whether I went to a store, the police would be there, an ambulance, and so drop into prayer. But this prayer came out of me about the individuals who was receiving, the doctors, the family that gave up these organs, or the person gave up these organs, the families. And I just embraced them all in this prayer. And I felt, oh my goodness, this is the errand that I was being called. And I could just see, I kept praying until I could see the van just moving ahead. And I felt so blessed to be able to do that, to be able to participate, because I felt like, whoa, I have never seen this in all of my life, to see that. And it felt so invigorating. It felt like a blessing for me to witness this and to participate. And we always say that at Agape, that, when you're praying for someone, it's for you, because remember, there's only the one. So that experience,
Wow.
I was just blown away.
And you created a bubble, a love bubble
I love
around all of them. And that was what I wanted to say. So when you're talking about, when you're reading the news and everybody is made from source, God, whatever the word is, people, that resonates with people and they're comfortable with, and somebody has a polar opposite view of yours, what is it that you do? So you're reading the news and you're normally, we'd get triggered by something like that and you'd lash out and get angry. But what do you do then? Do you send love? What can we do? Because I've said this before in the podcast, one of my guests, Susan Graw, would say it's easy to love the lovable, but it's really hard to love the unlovable. If we feel it's unlovable.
Right.
What can each of us do when we get triggered in a situation like that to up the vibration of the world?
Well, I just flashed on something that happened to me some time ago. It was on a plane. I was on a flight, I guess, from LA to New York. And there was this elderly man who was standing up, must have been pre, 9/11, because he was walking around and he seemed to be getting in everyone's way. The attendants seemed to be maybe a little, irritated by him, the other passengers. I think he was hunched over and he was just walking, and maybe he was muttering to himself. And I had this vision of him at birth and how his mother saw him and how he was coming into the world. And so that's an image that I sometimes will keep when I'm watching someone who's triggering me, that, oh, this person, you know, is was an innocent who came into the world. Don't know what happened for that individual to get from point A to where they are now, but I'm going to focus on it has to be inherent in them, right? It has to be. Again, I'm operating from a base of there is only one, there's only the one. I'm not saying that this is not hard or challenging at times. And when it is, I definitely can engage, right? Because I do not want to put out that negativity and that anger. That does not help at all. And in fact, that does the opposite. I don't want to contribute to the poison by thinking such negative things about the individual. So I might have to turn it off, go, "Huh," like, like that kind of shoulders, and like kind of energetically trying to like release it, because I don't want to contribute to it. So I really do believe, we talk a lot at Agape about not being against what we're against, because I do energy um does not help. I think it does the opposite. So I remember going to a political rally several months ago, and it was about the against, but my sign was about, what I'm for, and I had a peace sign. So there are little ways to think of things, and to really no, I think Michael Beckwith, he always talks about, and he's been on fire, especially recently. Tune into, I'm going to advertise, please tune into services because he's been addressing very directly what's happening. But he talks about our, does he say our less, what does he say? It's a softening in terms of how he approaches certain individuals who might be really challenging for people. Less, he says that they're less, not intellectual, less, not advanced is another word that he uses that softens it, that makes you real. They're just not as mature, less mature. They're less mature, which you can trace to maybe less evolved spiritually, less, they don't, something's happened. So he looks at it that way, which I think is really interesting and kind of brings a gentleness to it. Even though these are fiery, I mean, don't think, he's impassioned. We're all impassioned about what's going on. Not only in this country, this past Sunday, there was a focus on Iran and what's happening in Iran, and Martin Luther King, son was there as well. So we believe that yes, something new is being birthed, right? And we're going birth canal, and it's painful. I did have to do that. I had to have a planned C-section, but I understand it's very painful to go through this birth canal and what we're birthing. But I see that so many people, are waking up. I feel that. I see it. I mean, I was at the Dollar Tree store and there was a woman talking to a man in front of me online, and they clearly didn't know each other. But she started talking to him and she's like, "Oh, so you're daddy's dad." And then I heard her say, "Well, I bring the light."
Wow.
She said, "I bring the light, I'm about that." And I just thought, I said to her, of course I had to say something because that's one of my favorite things to do is to connect with strangers and connect with people. We have these moments, divinely appointed moments. It's like probably knew each other in a past lifetime or not, but and I said to her, "I heard what you said." I attend a Unity church as well, and we had just that was the talk 2 Sundays before, bringing the light about these synchronistic encounters. And here's this woman, and she's talking about, "That's why I'm here. I bring the light." And then how did we say goodbye? I'm like, I blew her a kiss and goes, "See you later, sister." And I'm gonna remember her. I'm gonna remember her. And so I think people are remembering. They're walking in remembered radiance, as Howard Thurman said, and they're remembering connections. And I try to focus on that.
So walking in remembered radiance. I was having coffee with a friend yesterday, and we were saying about how people seem to be, their intuition is coming on board, they're awakening, they're seeing the magic around them. People that people that I know that I never thought would kind of tap into this kind of thing. But there's an under rumbling of magic happening. And I really am of the belief, because we're energy, we're frequency, nothing is solid, we're always vibrating, that if you can send out that energy, that frequency of love, in my space, it's love or higher, that it does touch upon people, and I guess that's the power of prayer. I mean, I never was a part of a strong religious community. I grew up Jewish, but I was never really involved. But I can see the power, why people say the power of prayer. Because it's love. It's love, love, love. There's something that I wrote here, and I circled it because I wanted to talk to you about it. Shift from approval to alignment. We are always looking for approval. And I mean, if I were doing that with the podcast, I'd be looking at numbers every day and go, oh my gosh, I got to raise the numbers. And I don't do it. I just don't do it. People know I just don't do it. I've kind of put that by the wayside. So that we're always kind of looking for approval. It's really nice when somebody says, oh, you're doing such a great job, or, you're just the best at what you do. And it's very comforting, but it comes in and it leaves us. It doesn't stick. And then we need more and more and more approval. And how do we go from approval to alignment? I know it's a huge question, but how do we start feeling alignment in our bodies?
I think, my goodness, that's something that I think that I've been dealing with and facing recently, and perhaps will always face, right? Because who doesn't want to be liked and who doesn't want to be loved? And if you find yourself ever in a situation um, where you don't feel loved or you don't feel liked, and you really want that, right? That feels good. And there can be a disparity where you see there's certain people who do love you, and this other person, perhaps they don't seem to love you so much, or which to me really gets to they don't see me. Right? They don't see me, because to see me is to love me. How could they not, right? And not from an ego, but just because we're all one. And so it makes you wonder, what is it that they're seeing or not seeing? Who is it that they're loving or not loving? Who is it that they're judging or not judging? So to get to alignment, again, it all goes back to spirit, that inner knower, and connecting with that. Because without that, we don't have anything. Like, that's the most important dynamic, relationship, connection that we could have. That connection with, I call it spirit, I call it God, but I know that there are others who might not necessarily believe in God or spirit, and they might call it something else, or a power, or knowing. I mean, they have transcendent moments. The Olympics are happening right now, right? I'm sure they're experiencing God, some of those athletes. Um, so I always feel like it doesn't matter what you call it, as long as you call it, like, call it from within. So that alignment, I feel as if there's so many, first of all, that word is so used now, right? It's actually the subtitle of my book, Aligning with the Divine Wherever You Are, alignment. And it comes through, well, it comes through everything. So if it means listening to a piece of music, if it means reading something inspiring, if it means getting a massage, if it means, I contribute to Unity magazine, Spirituality and Health. And so I've interviewed folks like Sonia Shakad and Colette Baron-Reed and Marianne Williamson. And so there's so much out there right now to connect. There's almost no excuse not to connect.
I know. I just interviewed Colette, and
Wonderful.
yes, and I
I've
love her.
so many. Yes.
I fell in love with her. We
Mhm.
just had a little love fest
Yeah.
again from Beth Grossman, but
I bet.
but there is a lot of free exercises, meditations, whatever, out there for everybody. So that is available. I have found that in the things that have been the most challenging for me, most difficult, I mean, from the extreme to loss, to just my technology screwing up and not being able to, and trying to put the podcast together. Now when those things happen, when it's something like maybe technology, I get a little smile on my face. I'm frustrated as hell, but I get a smile on my face. I go, okay, there's a lesson. This is a teaching moment. Everything is a teaching moment. There are times when I go, okay, I'm done with the teaching moments. Thank you very much. But I do believe that some of the hardest things that we go through are really, truly the greatest gifts we've ever had. And I wouldn't be who I am today without some very difficult things that happened in my life. And I look back and I really thank them. At the time, I couldn't. But now I do look at the world. I look at, okay, there is a lesson in this. There is love somewhere in this, somewhere, because we are made from love.
Mhm.
And um, anyway, I'm not sure where I'm going with all that, but I think it is important that in our most dire moments that we can stop and go, there's something beautiful in here.
Mm. But then again, we're human, and sometimes we can't in the midst of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does the Bible talk about thrashing and gnashing of teeth or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been there. I
Mm-hmm.
feel despondent. I'm crying. That's when I'm in the forest, you know, in the forest landscape. And I feel that that's okay too. I feel like it's okay to feel your humanity and you feel the frustration. But the key is to be gentle with yourself. I find that those of us who are in a spiritual path sometimes, and I'll speak for myself, that I might feel, oh, I shouldn't feel this way because I know X, Y, and Z, and I've experienced, this high, and and maybe I'm not as gentle with myself.
I think that's a key, being gentle with yourself, because I mean, with all of the studies I've done, neuroscience, metaphysics, and all of this, I have the tools. I know the tools. I know what to go to, and there are many times I don't go to any of them, and I just sit there and I'm pissed, or whatever. And
Pissastic.
but I also give myself grace, because I go, I am human.
Yes.
There's a beauty about that we get to feel all these emotions. The key is not staying in them. I think it's super important to feel them all.
Hmm.
It's what makes you who you are. And it's the beauty about being on the planet, and I've heard that from my guides, that, oh my gosh, how beautiful you are as humans. You get to do that, but don't stay in it.
Exactly. And I think the gap lessens, right? The gap decreases from the time of feeling that being pissed off to feeling, oh, I see a way here. Oh, the opening here. So I think, and it's about having those tools in our tool chest. It's about knowing I can go to prayer, I can go to meditation, I can go to a Georgia Michael song, or Stevie Wonder's As is my song as well. It just makes me feel so loved. I can move, I can dance, I can do yoga. There's so many tools. I can feel what I'm feeling. I can write it out. I can dance it out. I can shake it out. I mean, so, I can go take a walk in nature. I feel that that's what it's all about. And again, being gentle with oneself.
It's,
I like
it's
slowing down time too. I make a point of, well, and this has happened time and time again. I'm a deadline person, right? Obviously, I was a journalist for so many years, but I find that, well, maybe there really isn't time. And maybe, if I am not centered, I can't do this thing that I think needs to be done in this moment. So I know I have to get clear before I can turn my attention to something. Um, and then sometimes what will happen is I realize, oh, it worked out perfectly that
Mhm.
I delayed this thing that I thought I had to do because someone was telling me I had to do it, when actually there was this other possibility. And so that's where the trust comes in, because there have been times when my human mind knows, and other people around me are like, you got to do this. You've got to do this. And something else is telling me, no, you don't. Not right now. Hold off. Hold the beat. That's the phrase I always hear. Hold the beat. Hold the beat. And I feel uncomfortable sometimes, in terms of trusting what I'm hearing. And then when there's this external world saying something else. And so I take lots of deep breaths. And sometimes I don't listen. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, that's right. You told me, spirit, to go here, and instead I did that. And it's always okay. That's the thing. There is no punishment. There is no punishing. There is just such unconditional love.
Mhm.
Such unconditional love. And that's when you realize, oh, wow. Okay. I mean, the universe is course correcting. There really isn't a wrong direction. It's all going to bring you back to center. It's all going to bring you back to spirit.
I think that's absolutely right. And what the universe does is when they do give you the guidance and you actually pick up on it and they give you the signs, it's just a little easier path. And if you decide, no, I'm going to do it this way, you're still going to get somewhere with it. And it's what you're supposed to be doing at that time. I mean, because you made that choice. We have that choice to make. It's tricky business, but trust in just being calm. And then I love Elizabeth Gilbert says when she writes, who was it that inspired her to do this? That she'll sit down, write for an hour, and then she'll stop mid-sentence, walk away because she's ready. She's doing great, right? The flow is in, the flow's there. She walks away, comes back to it the next day. And then you're in, it just gets you back into the flow. Because if she were to keep writing and writing in the flow and the flow and the flow, the next day it might be empty. And so it keeps the flow going. I just really love that. I love her. I love everything about her, but
I do too. I do too. Although I might say, well, if there's this flow, I'm not countering this, but I'm just thinking because she believes that she comes back to it, the flow. I'm thinking the flow is always there. And it's really about what we believe. So she believes that if I leave now, the flow will be there. Wonderful. But what if I were to leave and believe that the flow is always going to be there? I can write for 2 hours and I'm going to have that flow. I'm going to have that flow. So I tend to lean towards belief in terms of what, we make it what we will and what we think. So, but yeah, I've definitely heard about the exercise of not leaving something in the middle. So and everyone's so individual. That's what's so wonderful, right? How many of us are there? 8 billion? 9 billion? So it's wow, there's such endless possibility.
I think belief is the key there. It's whatever I mean, the belief has to be so strong in you. And so that's why that practice works so brilliantly for her and for so many. But if you have a belief that's contrary to that, and it works for you, then of course it's going to work for you. But it's the belief. The belief has to live it, breathe it, feel it, taste it, hear it. It has to be just filled with everything. And that's what's really hard for us, is to have the belief that something's going to work out, or we have a tendency to go towards the negative rather than the positive. So we're coming to the close here, but I have questions for you. But I did want to just ask you, is there something that you feel is really important that you want to share about the book, or about alignment, about finding ourselves, feeling belonging existentially, how we get there?
Just a couple little things to
just like, a nugget.
It's that I just know that spirit, the universe, meets you where you are. And so just be open, whether it looks like, going to, a talk, or I think with Colette, actually, after I interviewed her, I opened a random book, and I saw a synchronistic thing in the book from her. She talks about working with Fred, this conglomerate of spirits. I opened a book and there was the word Fred. I mean, so I just know the universe is literally conspiring on our behalf, and that it loves us. Love is innate in everything, and that it really is about, and this is my call, being really gentle with myself and being loving with myself. And therefore, I can be loving to you and to that politician who might challenge me. I think Sacred Landscapes of the Soul is about different landscapes and how we move through these different places of being, and that's the richness of being in our humanity. I really do believe that. And finally, I realized we're meeting on a most auspicious day. Did you realize that? It's the beginning first night of Ramadan. It's Ash Wednesday, and then we, as of yesterday, I suppose, are in the year of the
Mhm.
fire horse. So these are very exciting times.
And it's also, if my parents were here, it's my parents' anniversary, wedding anniversary.
Beautiful. I think
So
you mentioned that.
I
Yeah.
did, because I love them so dearly. And I thought, oh, how lucky I get to talk to you on my parents' anniversary.
And every moment has meaning. Every moment can have meaning. And I love
Mhm.
that.
Beautiful. Okay, these are a few questions I ask everybody. What's your number one go-to strategy to relieve mental distress?
Dance.
Mm.
I dance. I play songs really loudly and I move around.
Yeah, I have found that just shaking, like I wake up in the morning and I just shake my body and I do it for about a minute, it gets that lymph system going. It just feels good. It gets you out of
Yeah.
any physiology that you might have been in when you were sleeping.
Mhm.
It just kind of changes you. It's beautiful. What's one of the best pieces of advice you've received in life, personally or professionally?
Mm. My mother, who didn't give advice. You would think that she would have been someone to give advice. She always circled it back to me. And she'd say something like, "Well, I might not do that, but what would you do?" And so I don't really believe in advice. I think there's actually a passage in a vision in Sacred Landscapes about you've consulted with your oracle and your this and your that, but ultimately it comes to you. So I guess the advice would be to find that inner knower and to consult with that.
Mm, I love that. And your mom, what a great practice. Rather than offering what her opinion is, brings it back to you, which gives you sovereignty.
Yes.
That's incredibly beautiful. What does a successful life look like to you?
Hmm. I literally saw the word joy.
Mm.
I like to laugh. So successful life looks like joy. It looks like delivering of my gifts. There's some projects, one in particular that it came from spirit. And I know that, okay, it needs to get out there. And so it's going to get out there. And I don't have to control what that looks like. So it's really about listening to my inner knower. Again, a successful life looks like listening to my inner knower so that I can deliver my gifts and and be doing what I know I'm meant to do, that I'm called to do.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Complete the sentence. In the past, I was, and now I am.
Hmm. The word shy came to me. I was both actually. I was shy and now I'm more mm, the word butterfly came to mind.
Oh,
I was
can
shy. A butterfly. Oh, the rhyme. Oh, and that's another rhyme.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That one's new and I love it because I got imagery instantly because I was so shy. I was painfully shy. And the butterfly resonated with me because now I feel like I'm more of that. Oh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful,
Butter-
Karen.
Butterfly. I connect people. Oh, yeah.
Flutter around
Yeah.
and you can't help but smile when you see a butterfly. Where can people find you?
Oh, KarenBrailsford.com is my website, and there's all manners of things on it. There's passages from the book and what I'm up to. And yeah, so take a look.
And I really recommend that people pick up that book and just every once in a while just open it up and see what the message is that you're supposed to hear. Oh, Karen, thank you this flew by. Thank you. It did. Thank you so much for being here on Fear Unzipped. And it means the world to me. And I've enjoyed our conversation so much. And your book, which I will hold up one more time. Here.
Oh, thank you so much,
Well,
Sandy.
it's always hard to get that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very,
you want to get, yeah.
it was my pleasure to be here. I didn't expect we'd be talking about my family and that just felt so wonderful. I feel my parents around me all the time. So it was really special to be able to go back and share that with you.
I think it's important because it makes up who we are. I feel my parents around me all the time too, and
Mhm.
because they're always with you.
Yes,
They're always with you.
absolutely.
Oh my gosh, Karen, sending you so much love. Thank you, thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Lots of love.
Thank you, and thank you, Beth Grossman.
Thank you, Beth. Love you so much.
Bye, Sandi.